Mike Marley with Quantum Bell. Now in this video what we're going to discuss is how these are used to influence ballots, control politicians, or otherwise create a gang stalking situation. For example, somebody gets gang stalked and they blame somebody who probably has something to do with it, but can't be proven to have something to do with it. So, you know, someone goes on the internet, says I'm being gang stalked, but when you go and talk to them in person as a police officer, they can't find what's wrong. You know what I mean? So the police officer might say, oh, they're sick, or, you know, et cetera, and then, you know, with some thought in their mind, dude, someone's doing something out here because it just doesn't feel right, you know. So in this particular town, what they did was they influenced all the elections. So across 16 ballot locations, all but 2 have been targeted by the same through-the-ground methods, and again, from approximate rental a couple streets away. So across the methods for influencing the ballots, there's also an indicator of who to blame. So, for example, a warfare tactic in this community has 2 neighbors and three sites, right? So, and each one of those sites has a line under each of the under houses, and they're able to interfere with the media. So, oh, hey, go for a walk. Yo, your gang stalker's coming down the street, and then they talk to house number 5 down the street. Yo, why don't you go outside and meet your gang stalker, right? Meanwhile, they've been fucked with for 5 years. They want to confront their aggressor, and what they don't realize is it's a neighbor a couple streets away that put a phone line under their house, you know, and they're engaged in a freak out. So they'll turn their communities on one another. So the symptoms of a targeted person stem across a targeted segment of people, and eventually it becomes more than just a political weapon. Now, the political weapon is triggered when I dig the elections fix out. The economic weapon is when I apply a program like this across 104,000 people, and note that the symptoms of targeted people have now decreased the activity of their economy. They're not leaving their houses, they're buying online more, they're sticking to their cell phones, they want to use online merchants, not, you know, local merchants. They prefer the big box retailer versus the smaller retail because, you know, it might be uncomfortable to walk around in an area. For example, Volusia County, 47 deployments across this county, and that's a I would say relative figure about 35%, 40% of what is to be found out here. And relative to one organization or another, it's not all the same group of people. So relative to war, there's a political war. So I dig the weapons out, and all of a sudden I've taken down the mayor, I've taken down the governor, I've taken down the president of the United States, and all I had was a trencher machine or some method that is now proven across the state of Florida in 10 counties for how the elections were fixed or influenced, or et cetera, et cetera. And then an economic weapon. Now I have to remove the problem in order to fix my economy. And before I start to tear it to pieces as a politician and say maybe we do this, or this, you know, what is some of the underlying symptoms of, of the area. As for military weapons, some of this stuff was put in for tracking. The U.S. Armed Forces is known to use this, like other militaries, for tracking purposes. For example, during World War II, when Germany was divided, Russia had a system where nobody could cross this seemingly open space where there was not a damn soldier in sight. But every time someone tried to cross that field, you know, 10 soldiers showed up. So the in-the-ground tracking method is what some of this stuff is, and that's enabled across SAR, if it makes any sense. And that's, again, or RS, which is radio saturation. So some of these innovations might have been discontinued by the armed forces, I don't know, and acquired by organized crime because the government's protected them, or some perception that the government would protect these weapons might have led to the deployment or further substantiated deployments of. Other correlations across influence date back to other programs acquired by Quantum Bell, which is the use of a radioactive influence. And what this does is it says, if I point a microwave at you and I modulate that microwave, you're going to hear me talk. Whether I'm 500 feet from you or 500 yards from you, you're going to hear me talk. And what these guys did was find a way to hide it. So the modulation helps to select candidates or influence the person, or is otherwise a distributed system. Now, some of these systems, what I've discovered while I work, have escalated beyond basic systems. So where I've backed away from challenging organized crime, I still have to keep the organized crime out of my area. You know, where I've backed down from challenging the state or the federal government based on their deployments, what I'm noticing is a larger issue affecting the community, and it becomes increasingly indiscernible. So an event like 9/11/2001, where an organized crime sect or another country decided, hey, we're going to make some hijackers and start a war, these guys are going to take the weapons with them. In other words, we're going to blame them for the spider webs, it's going to be their fault, and everyone's going to walk away. And that war ended up killing 4 million people. And now we're on the other side of this conflict where they still haven't dug the weapons out. And when I say weapons, that means that what I am seeking to resolve is a weaponized use. So whether it's supported by a tunnel system, a remote bunker system, you know, a satellite system, or a cellular network, or even a ham radio relay network, these systems become increasingly difficult to locate until you're trained well enough to locate them. And this forms the basis of the radio battalion mentality at Quantum Bell. And whether it's a corporation trying to earn a profit, or a military unit trying to do classified research, or an organized crime ring trying to earn some money, or, for example, you know, the 9/11 hijackers took down Wall Street, right? How'd they do it? With a utility knife, right? Well, one of the problems of a freak out across, you know, left or right hand is the collection on a residence. They build the rat cage, you know, they're hurting them, they know they're going to dance around like a particle, right? Try and get out of the area, chew their way out of a problem. And they have what's known as a feedback loop. This means the person talks and they listen. And then they say, oh no, you committed a crime, you robbed something stupid. Maybe they robbed a convenience store, or ran a stop sign, or jaywalked in town. I mean, who cares what the crime is, right? The crime is collected as what's known as a edge in the home. So this puts a blade in the home using an electronic maneuver as part of electronic warfare, and it's called a utility knife. And that means that these guys have exploited your utilities. When you buy a house or rent an apartment in the United States, you turn on your utilities. You get your TV turned on, you get your telephone turned on, you get your power turned on, and it has been weaponized. So it's called a utility knife when the edge feeds back into the home what was collected as a way to damage that target every day. And it leads back again to video games, and almost like role-playing games, where a group of 5 people, you know, they call them pingers, do a little bit of damage, you know, to one or a few people every day, and it eventually makes them sick. So again, it's correlated across rat in a cage, or lab rat, or other considerations for, you know, litigation and other issues of extensive problems. So in the state of Florida, what Quantum Bell is dealing with across 340 communities is at 10 counties, with elections targeted, schools targeted, and politics, you know, economic weapons, political weapons, and a U.S. armed force and a police force which has not been trained to identify, locate, or resolve these issues. So our company is well placed, but in a dangerous situation, which was almost well guarded by some other men to, you know, to kind of resolve some of the larger issues. One of the biggest challenges I have is that once the problem was recognized, the research indexes across doctors, police officers, enforcement, military, etc., and it's more than 400 different groups of men, whether they're professionals or retirees or military professionals or etc. And you know, the choice is, do I let the community suffer, or do I try and put up a defense? And how do I put up a defense and start a company and use capitalism as I'm required for this particular conflict to solve the problem without declaring war? And the issue is, if for some armed men, it might already be war. So I don't want to get into the details of conflict. I'm going to keep it about the technology and the wiring in the ground, and I'm going to keep working with it.